Let's start with a question that's going to piss some of you off. What's your zombie apocalypse weapon of choice? If you said katana, congratulations. You just died in week 1. If you said guns, you lasted maybe a month before you ran out of ammo or got your skull caved in fighting over the last box of 9mm at a stripped sporting goods store. Here's the thing, most zombie survival fantasies get catastrophically wrong. They treat weapon selection like a video game loadout screen. You're not picking based on what's cool or what your favorite character used in The Walking Dead. You're picking based on what you can actually find, maintain, and use effectively when you're exhausted, starving, and one mistake away from becoming lunch. The survival rate for the average person in a true zombie outbreak? Optimistically, about 3% make it past the first month. And here's what separates that 3% from everyone else. They didn't bring a sword to a bite fight. Before we get into it, if you're serious about survival strategy and not just zombie movie trivia, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community that thinks tactically, not theatrically. Because when it counts, knowledge beats katanas every single time. All right, let's establish parameters. We're talking about a standard Romero-style outbreak. Slow to medium speed infected, transmission through bites and fluid contact, collapse of social order within 72 hours. You're an average person, not a Navy SEAL, not a martial arts expert, not someone with a prepper bunker full of AR-15s. You've got what you can scavenge from your neighborhood in the first 48 hours before everything goes to hell. The goal isn't to be a zombie-killing machine. The goal is to survive long enough to reach safety, defend yourself when cornered, and conserve energy because every swing, every sprint, every fight drains resources you can't replace. So here are the 5 weapons you actually need in order of priority. And I'm going to destroy some of your favorite fantasy picks along the way. Number 1, the crowbar. Yeah, I know, boring, right? You wanted me to say chainsaw or crossbow. Here's why the crowbar is your primary weapon and why it will save your life more than any blade ever will. First, it's not just a weapon, it's a survival multi-tool. You need to break into a pharmacy for medical supplies. Crowbar. You need to pry boards off a window to escape a building? Crowbar. You need to smash a car window quietly or pop a trunk for supplies. Crowbar does it with minimal noise compared to most alternatives. As a weapon, it's got reach, weight, and requires zero maintenance. You don't sharpen it. You don't oil it. You don't worry about the blade chipping or the handle breaking. Drop it in a river, drag it through mud, use it to pry open a sewer grate. It still works exactly the same. And here's the tactical advantage nobody talks about. It's a hooking tool. You can snag a zombie by the clothes, by the jaw, by whatever, and create distance or redirect it without getting within bite range. You can also use it to test doors, poke at suspicious shadows, and keep yourself 1 arm's length farther from danger than any knife or baton allows. The obvious objection, it's heavy. Yeah, about 3 to 5 pounds depending on length. After an hour of carrying it, your arm's tired. After a day of holding it ready, you want to throw it away. Here's the counter. Compared to starving to death because you couldn't break into a locked storage unit, tired arms are a luxury problem. Length matters. You want 18 to 24 inches. Too short and you lose leverage and reach. Too long and it becomes unwieldy in tight spaces like hallways and cars. The sweet spot is long enough to give you standoff distance, but short enough to swing in a stairwell without hitting the walls. Weight distribution. You want the majority of mass at the striking end. When you swing, you're not relying on arm strength alone, you're using momentum and gravity. Even someone with limited upper body strength can generate devastating force with proper technique, because the tool does the work. One more thing, the psychological factor. A crowbar looks like a tool, not a weapon, which matters in human encounters. You're less likely to be seen as an immediate threat compared to someone brandishing a machete, which buys you negotiation time before things escalate. Number 2, the machete. Now we get into cutting tools, and this is where people make fatal mistakes. Let's be real for a minute. You do not want a sword. Here's what most people don't realize about swords. They're weapons that require training, maintenance, and very specific combat scenarios to be effective. A katana, which everyone loves to fantasize about, has a thin blade designed for precise cuts with proper edge alignment. Hit a skull at the wrong angle, the blade bends or chips. Try to hack through heavy clothing or a leather jacket. You're doing chip damage while the zombie's grabbing your arm. The machete, on the other hand, is designed to be abused. It's a clearing tool built for repetitive impact against wood, vines, and dense vegetation. The blade is thick, the edge angle is forgiving, and it's weighted for chopping rather than slicing. You can swing it incorrectly and still generate effective strikes. You can hit bone, and the blade survives. Length, you want 14 to 18 inches of blade. Any longer and you lose control in close quarters. Any shorter, and you're basically using a large knife, which we'll get to. The key is one-handed use with enough mass behind the blade to deliver stopping power. Maintenance is stupidly simple. Keep it dry, keep it reasonably sharp. You don't need a razor edge, you need a working edge that can bite through tissue and break bone. A machete at 70% sharpness is still a functional weapon. A katana at 70% sharpness is a fancy club. The tactical advantage, speed, and recovery. With a machete, you can strike, recover, and strike again in a rhythm. The blade isn't so heavy that each swing commits you to a long recovery animation like you're in a Dark Souls boss fight. You can adjust mid-swing if the threat moves, or if a second zombie appears in your peripheral vision. Here's the trap people fall into. They buy a machete and think they're done. You need to practice with it before you need it. Not zombie killing practice, wood chopping practice. Hit a fence post 50 times. Feel how your hands blister, how your forearm burns, how your accuracy degrades with fatigue. Because that's what fighting for your life feels like. And finding out during the actual apocalypse that you can't maintain your grip after 6 swings is a fatal lesson. One warning: machetes are loud. Every impact against bone or hard surface rings out like a dinner bell for every zombie in a 2-block radius. You use this when you have to fight, not when you're trying to stay hidden. Number 3, the tactical knife. Not a combat knife, not a survival knife with a 12-inch blade and a sawback. A simple, fixed blade knife with a 4 to 6-inch blade that you can access in under 2 seconds. This is your last-ditch, oh shit, the zombie grabbed me tool. You don't go looking for fights with a knife. You pull it when everything else has failed and you're in grappling range with something trying to eat your face. Fixed blade, not folding. Folding knives have a failure point at the hinge. Under stress with sweaty or bloody hands, that lock can fail or you can fumble the deployment. A fixed blade is idiot-proof. You grab it, you stab with it, it works. Blade shape matters less than you think, but avoid serrated edges. Serrations are a pain to sharpen in field conditions and they bind in tissue. A plain edge goes in, comes out, and doesn't require special tools to maintain. The handle is critical. You want aggressive texturing or grip panels that won't slip when wet. Blood, sweat, rain, mud. Your hands will be covered in all of it. If the knife rotates in your grip during a stab, you've just turned a weapon into a liability. Carry position, strong side hip or cross draw on your weak side, never on your back. You need to be able to draw it with either hand while on your back, pinned against a wall, or with one arm disabled. Practice drawing it from every awkward position you can think of. Sitting, lying down, crouched, running, because you won't have the luxury of a clean draw when you need it. Here's the psychological factor. Carrying a knife gives people false confidence. They think they can fight their way through situations that require running. A knife is an emergency tool, not a primary weapon. If you're using your knife, your plan has already failed twice. Number 4, the aluminum baseball bat. Specifically aluminum, not wood. Wood bats crack, split, and break after repeated impacts with hard surfaces like skulls. Aluminum dents, bends slightly, but keeps functioning long after wood would have failed. The advantage over the crowbar: speed and energy efficiency. An aluminum bat is lighter, requires less energy per swing, and allows for faster consecutive strikes. In a scenario where you're facing multiple threats and need to create space quickly, the bat gives you higher output before exhaustion sets in. Length: standard adult bat, 32 to 34 inches. Youth bats are too short and light. Softball bats are too heavy at the barrel. You want the standard size that balances reach, weight, and swinging speed. Grip it properly. Choke up slightly from the base for more control, not down at the knob like you're going for a home run. You're not trying to knock zombies into the outfield. You're trying to deliver concussive force to the skull with precision and repeatability. The downside: it's a specialized tool. Unlike the crowbar, it doesn't open doors, pry windows, or serve utility functions. It's purely for combat. That means you're probably carrying it in addition to a multi-tool weapon, which adds weight and complexity to your loadout. Durability concern, the handle. Where the barrel meets the handle is the weakest point. Repeated impacts, especially off-center strikes, will eventually cause this joint to fail. You can reinforce it by wrapping the area with grip tape or paracord, but understand that this weapon has a lifespan measured in encounters, not years. One tactical note: the sound. That distinctive metallic ping carries far. You're announcing your location every time you use it. In early outbreak, when noise discipline matters, the bat stays strapped. In later stages, when you're defending a position or the situation is already hot, the bat becomes a high-value tool. Number 5, the improvised spear. Not something you buy, something you make. A broom handle, a mop pole, a length of PVC pipe, anything straight and roughly 6 feet long with a blade, spike, or sharpened end attached. Here's what separates survivors from casualties: reach. Every inch between you and an infected mouth is survival space. A spear gives you 3 to 4 feet more distance than any hand weapon, which means you can engage threats before they enter grabbing range. The psychology of the spear is brutal. It reduces combat to the simplest possible mechanic. You don't need training. You don't need strength. You poke the dangerous end toward the bad thing. A child can understand and execute spear tactics. It's the most democratized weapon in human history for a reason. Improvised construction. You want a blade or spike secured with both adhesive and bindings. Duct tape alone will fail after a few impacts. Paracord binding alone can loosen. Use both. Wrap generously, test it before you need it, and inspect it after every encounter. Blade choice for your spearhead. A kitchen knife works, but a screwdriver or sharpened metal spike is better. You're not cutting. You're punching through soft tissue and deflecting attacks. A spike penetrates skulls more reliably than a blade edge and doesn't require sharpening. Tactical use. You're not swinging it like a staff or going full Oberyn Martell. You're using short, controlled thrusts to the head, maintaining your distance and retreating when necessary. The spear lets you fight defensively, which is the only fight you want in a zombie scenario. The massive downside: portability and durability. A 6-foot spear doesn't fit through doors easily, can't be carried discreetly, and breaks if you fall on it or it gets caught on something. It's a weapon you construct when you're defending a position or moving through open areas, not something you carry everywhere. Environment matters. Indoors, your spear becomes a liability. Hallways, stairwells, rooms, anywhere with limited space turns your reach advantage into a handicap. That's when you drop it and transition to your knife or bat. You don't die clinging to a weapon that's wrong for the scenario. All right, let's talk about what didn't make the list and why your favorite is probably going to get you killed. Guns. Everyone's first choice until they think past the first magazine. Ammo is finite, guns are loud as hell, and the moment you fire a shot, every zombie and hostile human in earshot knows where you are. You want a gun for desperate situations and human threats. But it's not a primary zombie weapon, because sustainability matters more than stopping power. Axes. Everyone wants to be a Viking until they actually swing a splitting axe at head height. Axes are top-heavy, exhausting to use, and require both hands. They're excellent for wood processing and utility, terrible for sustained combat. You chop 5 zombies and your shoulders are screaming. Chop 15 and you can barely lift your arms. Meanwhile, someone with a crowbar is still functional. Chainsaws. This one's almost too stupid to address, but people keep bringing it up. Fuel dependency, noise, weight, maintenance, and the fact that getting zombie blood sprayed directly into your face seems like a bad time. It's a movie prop, not a survival tool. Swords. We covered this, but it bears repeating. Swords are specialist weapons that require training and constant maintenance. The samurai spent years mastering the katana. You have a week before society collapses, and your YouTube tutorial education isn't going to cut it. Literally. Bows and crossbows. Sustainable ranged weapons sound great until you factor in accuracy requirements, training time, bolt recovery logistics, and the fact that a miss is a lost resource. Unless you're already an experienced archer, you're not learning to reliably hit moving targets under stress. And recovering bolts from corpses in a hostile environment is nightmare fuel. So here's your practical loadout assessment. The crowbar is your primary because it solves problems and defends you. The machete is your dedicated close combat weapon when fighting is unavoidable. The knife is your oh shit emergency tool. The bat is your energy-efficient option when you need to engage multiple threats without exhausting yourself. The spear is your defensive tool for holding ground or traversing open areas. You don't carry all 5 at once. That's 40 pounds of weapons slowing you down. You select based on where you are and where you're going. Clearing a building? Crowbar and knife. Moving through suburban streets? Crowbar and machete. Defending a house? Bat and spear, with the crowbar for breaching and the knife as backup. The survival rating for someone with this realistic weapon setup versus someone running around with a katana and a crossbow. You're looking at a 7 out of 10 short term, maybe a 4 out of 10 long term. Because weapons don't solve the food problem, the water problem, the shelter problem, or the eventual human conflict problem. They just keep you alive long enough to face those problems. Long-term survival in any apocalypse scenario isn't about killing efficiency. It's about energy conservation, noise discipline, and not getting into fights you don't need. The best weapon is the one you never have to use because you were smart enough to stay hidden. But when you have to fight, when there's no other option, the difference between coming home and becoming a corpse is choosing tools that actually work instead of tools that look cool in movies. All right, your turn. Which weapon on this list could you actually use effectively right now without training, without practice? In a life or death situation, be honest. Could you swing a crowbar 20 times without dropping it? Could you maintain your grip on a machete after it impacts bone? Could you construct a functional spear with the materials in your house right now? Drop your honest assessment in the comments. No plot armor, no main character syndrome, just real talk about what you could actually handle. And if you learned something that challenges your apocalypse plan, hit subscribe and the bell. Because we're just getting started on separating survival facts from zombie fiction. Remember, when the dead walk, the survivors aren't the ones with the coolest weapons. They're the ones with the most boring, reliable, and sustainable tools who were smart enough to pick function over fantasy. Stay sharp, stay realistic, and for the love of God, leave the katana on the wall where it belongs.